Hey everyone, how you guys doing tonight? Good. My name is Rob Moynihan. I'm with TV Guide Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you and our live stream audience to a SAG Conversations with the Cast of SUBURGATORY. Yeah. As you can see by the number of chairs, we have a lot of the cast here tonight, so I think we should just get this started. Please help me introduce and welcome the creator of SUBURGATORY, Emily Kapnek. Next up, he plays George Altman. Give it up for Jeremy Sisto. She plays Dallas Royce. It's Cheryl Hines. And she is the hilarious Sheila Shay, Anna Gasteyer. He plays guidance counselor Mr. Wolfe. It's Rex Lee. Give it up for Dahlia herself, Carly Chaikin. She plays Lisa Shay. It's Allie Grant. And last but certainly not least, please welcome Parker Young and Brian Shay. So thanks for coming out, everyone. Emily, I want to start with you, and I think you guys should have mics in front that you have to share here. Yeah. So let's talk about the show from the very beginning and the idea behind SUBURGATORY. You know, how did you kind of come up with it, and how did you start the process to get the show where it is here now?
Well, it was a cold and no. It was development season, and a couple years ago, and you know, you take your usual round of meetings and talk about sort of ideas that you want to pitch and potentially develop for TV shows. And I met with Warner Brothers, and they had actually optioned the title SUBURGATORY from a pre-existing book pitch. And this, at the time, this book had not been written. I think it actually has been written now, but at the time, the book hadn't been written, and they just thought, wow, that's a great title, SUBURGATORY. So they optioned the title. I didn't know this was something you could do, but if you have any great titles in you, apparently there's a good business to be made. Selling just titles to people. But so they had optioned the title SUBURGATORY. When I went in to have my meeting, they said, does this mean anything to you? Does this word SUBURGATORY resonate with you in any way? And in fact, I grew up in Manhattan and had moved to the suburbs when I was preteen, around junior high school age. And so I said, yeah, actually, I can identify with that. And I sort of started talking about my family's experience moving from New York to Larchmont, a suburb of the city. And yeah, that was basically how it started. So, you know, the more we talked about it, and the more they sort of heard some of those stories, we felt like maybe that was a cool area to explore.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can you talk about casting the show too, and kind of how it all fell into place? Was there somebody that you had in mind for a certain role, and then it kind of went from there?
No, I mean, I think that that's the truth. I mean, it wasn't really. Look, I mean, obviously our cast is the dream team. This, you know, the most incredible ensemble on television, in my opinion, obviously. But like a real gift. I mean, you know, I couldn't have I never would have allowed myself to dream we would have these actors in these roles. You would hope for maybe one of these actors. But the idea that we have this incredible him, Sisto. No, but really truthfully, it's like, I think you come at it, you know, you always have networks that say, you know, we're looking for a vehicle for this person, or we have a deal with so-and-so, or, you know, and there was none of that. I think that we approached this material really sort of honestly and said, who's right, and let's look at all choices and not go just down the middle and find people who maybe you wouldn't expect in these roles. And there was just a lot of very unexpected, creative open-mindedness when it came to casting. And I think that also for me, it's like getting to pursue some of our, you know, exciting, you know, pie in the sky names comedically, and even just in terms of like people who had, you know, different backgrounds, whether it was cable or drama or, you know, people you wouldn't normally see in a half-hour comedy. Very, very supportive on ABC's behalf, and also Warner Brothers as well, to just sort of let us do what was right for the show. And yeah, super lucky.
Well, I think one of those people would definitely be, for TV fans, Jeremy, who used to seeing Jeremy on dramas, Law and Order, Six Feet Under. Jeremy, can you talk a little about entering the sitcom world? And were you looking to do a comedy? How did you kind of make that transition?
Well, before I did Law and Order, I tested for a comedy, and I didn't do very well, and I didn't get it. And it was because they didn't think I was going to be funny enough or something. So, and I had gotten that a lot for a while, where I would have to go into auditions just purely to try to prove to them that I'm funny, and that kind of pressure was not good for me, and I was never able to do it. So when this thing came along, and it was just an offer for a genre that I didn't think was going to be coming my way without a lot of force. I was.
You're funny!
Thank you, Mom.
We can laugh.
I was very excited, but you know, it's like for me. You don't, you know, when you read a pilot, it's 30 pages or something. It's very short, and the pilot is ours, especially because it's a fish out of water story, so it's just getting to know the characters. So it was hard to really see what the show was going to become. I had one conversation with Emily on the phone, and really I was just trying to get my head around moving my family from New York to LA, and so it's you know, it takes a lot of luck to you know, have the show that you're offered turn into something that you really enjoy being on and actually enjoy watching as well.
Did you put any of yourself into the character, maybe after you read it?
Yeah, actually, when I first read it, I had heard that they had wanted Matthew Broderick for George. I'm not sure if it was true or not, but it was something that I thought was pretty cool. And so I kind of went into it thinking the character was going to be like Matthew Broderick in Election, like really uptight and kind of, you know, sort of, I guess, suburban or something. It's just not what he is. And so when I got here, Emily was pretty quick to explain that wasn't the vision behind the character, which I was probably glad to hear in a way. I don't remember exactly how I felt about it. I was a little taken aback though, because for some reason I'd set it in my mind that was what the idea was, and yeah, so I think that was the end of my story.
Well, Cheryl, I want to ask you about this character of Dallas, because you know she's so over the top, but she's grounded with so much heart and so much emotion. I mean, how do you pull that off? What's your secret behind Dallas?
Come on, Cheryl.
Oh, what's my secret? You know, I studied at the Groundlings Theater for a long time, and I think one of the things that we learned there with comedy is Anna is also from the Groundlings. Tell me if I'm right. But usually, you know, if you're creating a character, it needs to come from a real place. That person needs to be a real person, or you're just doing a wig, yeah, a crazy wig in a crazy accent. But I found, you know, being a parent, that there are lots of parents out there that are really trying hard. But they're very misguided. They're worried about the wrong things, but at the end of the day, they really love their kid. So I think that's who Dallas is. She's just slightly misguided.
Well, I guess Anna, going off of that too, with your Groundlings background, how do you bring that into the Sheila character?
Well, it's more unconscious anymore, but in the sense that luckily I get to share a lot of my scenes with Chris Parnell, who's not here. He's stuck back east, but he's also a groundling, as is Cheryl. And I think that there's a kind of a common note, I think honestly about amongst the three of us, that there is a background in acting, and acting then that has character added on top of that. So I hope that, yes, these are big characters, but I think to Cheryl's point, that they're really rooted, in the writing. And honestly, this is a credit to Emily, that a lot of people, especially for girl parts, like you read a garden, to be truthful, a million breakdowns have said, a type A perfectionist mom, Martha Stewart-esque, whatever, but where it comes alive in Emily's writing is in the relationships that they play. Because usually you're sort of, especially as a girl, sublimated to the kind of, pain in the ass wife, and that's about all you're going to see, but you're not going to see the dimensions, the relationships between the children and the wife, the husband and the wife, and frankly Sheila has a lot of power in her household, and that's a whole lot of fun to play.
Well, and you have great chemistry with Chris too. You have a background with
Yeah.
SNL. How much does that help with that
Well,
relationship?
to me it helped enormously, because when I took the job, I took it essentially as, I knew that the part had the possibility to grow, but Chris hadn't been hired. And, this is a really talented group of people, but it takes a minute, you shoot a pilot, and the next thing you know, you're on a television series with everybody, and it takes a minute to kind of get your group dynamic down. And just the shorthand, Chris and I were not only in the Groundlings together, we were on Saturday Night Live together. We've been playing the same couple that are uptight people in their 40s, white people reacting. Horatio Sands used to call us the uptight whites, because that's like all we ever did on SNL. Why, ma'am, this constant. So it was very easy, because we have a shorthand, so instantly I had a trust there, and I feel like honestly I've taken bigger risks because I know Chris really well that I would never take. I'd feel too self-conscious if I was just a total newbie.
Yeah. Well, and Emily, you have a lot of former SNL vets on the show. You just had Rachel Dratch in the episode we just saw. What is it about SNL that draws them to your show, or vice versa?
I don't know. I think that I grew up watching SNL and admiring, the brand of comedy, the risks it took, how sort of diverse all of the actors were, how many different, skins they could live in. And I think that for a show like ours, where there's satire and there's this heightened sense, it is a fun playground for people who are sort of, multi-talented in that way. It's like we have our talent shows, we have our, school dances, we have our, we get to play a lot, and there's a playfulness to the suburbanites. And I do think that, we've always really carefully walked that line with the juxtaposition of, our urbanites, our New Yorkers who came into this world, and how grounded they were, and, being surrounded by this pool of crazy. So we knew that going into it, when we get to cast this pool, it's just super fun to reach out to, the people who do it best. And a lot of the time they just have just such an incredible well of talent there. And so it's been really delightful to get to cash in on that. But again, I think that some of the fun that we're having for our show is like especially in this season, just getting to watch George and Tessa slowly get infected by the environment and the crazy spreading. But no, it's great. It's really fun. It's just it's a great show for people who can sort of wrap their heads around the tone and just come and have fun on set.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the school storylines, and Rex, I'd like to ask you about Mr. Wolfe, because I think he's a very interesting character. You had a really big episode last season coming out to the students. Do you view this character, can you talk a little about playing him? Do you view him as an authority figure, or as someone who really wants to become friends with these kids?
Honestly, neither, and here's why. First, I have a little story before I answer your question specifically. Once upon a time, I read an article about the show Murphy Brown, and Diane English was talking about casting Candice Bergen in this role. And she said that up until Murphy Brown, she thought that Candice Bergen had always been miscast. She was cast as the Ice Princess, and this wasn't the Candice she knew. So she was watching Candice at work one day, and she's like, "That's Charlie Chaplin in the Ice Princess's body." and I thought that was like, I thought that was a wonderful description, and I always try to figure out if I can use that information ever. So I had a job before this one where I used it a lot. And then when I got this job, they sent me the script, and Mr. Wolfe was a woman. She was Mrs. Wolfe. And I was freaked out for a second. And not because I thought they were trying to, get me to cross-dress or anything, but because I thought, I read the script and the pilot, and I thought, I love that character as a woman. I love that Tessa has a single dad, and she moves to Chatswin, and there's Dallas, and there's Sheila, and there are all these women that want to help nurture her. So I thought, why are they talking to me? They should find a woman. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, you know what? What if I just play this part and I try to be another mother in this guy's body? And then I also had a really awesome discussion with Emily where she was talking about the backstory of Mr. Wolfe and how prior to the pilot, he's this guidance counselor. His heart's in the right place. He wants to help people, but all those kids completely ignore him. He's so ineffectual because he's just a non-entity to these kids. And all of a sudden, this girl moves to town, and for whatever reason, she talks to me. and I thought, and Mr. Wolfe blossoms.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, that's where I'm going with this. I want to be another mother. So I'm not trying to be an authority figure. I'm not trying to be friends with the kids. That's sort of my jumping off point.
That's really interesting. So, Emily, when you sent the script to Rex then, did you have kind of that in mind? How did it change from a woman to a guy? And was Rex the guy from the beginning?
It was actually just a typo, no. We had imagined her initially as a woman and Mrs. Wolfe. And, I thought that it would be super funny to have this guidance counselor, especially because we knew that Tessa's character would gravitate towards adults and feel sometimes maybe more comfortable talking to adults than she would kids. The idea that there was an early storyline where George is encouraging Tessa to invite one of her new friends to sleep over, and she invites Mrs. Wolfe, her guidance counselor, and he's like, oh, wow, really? It changed when Rex came on board, but when we started talking about names, and again, I think this just speaks to the approach we had with casting the show in general. Who are sort of the pie in the sky names? Who are the people that just make you laugh, that are just fantastic and funny? And when Rex came up, it was like, what could we find to do with Rex? And then I thought, well, what if we just changed this and saw, maybe if he would respond to this idea. A lot of people happened onto our pilot with the promise of, if you do this pilot, I swear, I promise, we will make this more substantial. Mr. Wolfe had stuff to do in the pilot too, but we knew there was so much more, and some of the conversation that I had with Rex was like, it wasn't necessarily evident in the pilot story. And Maestro Harrell's another great example. He plays Malik. He had a single line in the pilot. By the way, Parker didn't have a ton to do in the pilot either, and it's hard. Pilots are...
I just danced.
You just danced.
It's a lot.
I watered the lawn.
What's that?
I watered the lawn.
Exactly. Anna watered the lawn. It's really difficult to sort of deliver what you want to deliver, big picture, in the pilot and write to every character, that you want to. But all these great actors had the same promise, which was take the leap, do the pilot, and if the show winds up going, I swear to God, we'll make it worth your while.
Mm-hmm. And it's worked out for everyone. Yeah. Well, Carly, I'd love to ask you about Dahlia, because I think when people talk about Suburgatory, they talk about those one-liners and just the sense of humor, but lack of humor in Dahlia. Can you talk a little about this character? She can't be, you can't relate to her in any way, can you? Is there any bit of you in this?
We find out. I know. I had never done comedy before. I'm not blonde. I'd always done the darker roles, and I actually originally went in for the part of Tessa. And they asked to see me for Dahlia, and I literally thought my agent and managers were kidding. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll do it. And my natural instinct when I first saw this character was just kind of to play her just deadpan. And, because once I think, with all of these big characters, we find kind of the human in them. And that's another thing is this season we get to really see this human side to Dahlia also. But I I don't know, I just kind of saw her as this like deadpan girl, and people say she's like the bitch and stuff, and I honestly don't think, in my opinion, that's not her intention. When she tells Tessa that she has a veiny forehead, like, it's not malicious. It's just, she has a veiny forehead. And, I just think Dahlia is, like, doing her a favor. Like, to her, she's just, and as an actor, for me, I in general, am very subtle with it, and I think in this case, the subtlety of my acting kind of really paid off. And, I think a lot of the times people think that they have to do more, and I think a lot of the times it's funnier when you just do nothing.
I remember like 2 episodes in, Carly pulled me aside and was like, so is she allowed to move her face at all? And I was like, yeah, no, I think she can move her face. I think she can. Okay, like, just how much? Like, because remember early on, it was like everyone was so invested in just the deadpan that, like, occasionally she'd be like, I feel like I might want to move my eyebrows. Absolutely move your eyebrows. You're free to move those eyebrows.
We also, Ken Whittingham, who was one of our producers last year and director, one time he just gave me the direction. He was like, just more dead inside. And I was like, okay.
Inside?
Dead. But it has been, it's really been a challenge and tricky to me with this other side to Dahlia where she's sad, and it's like, what does it look like for Dahlia to be sad and to still be able to, be human and show those emotions without losing the character. So that was something that was actually kind of challenging, because normally I do drama. And I'll shut up after this. But the other thing, with Jeremy, all these people were like, he can't do comedy and da-da-da-da-da. And he can't. I'm just kidding. He's amazing. But I think sometimes, like, dramatic actors bringing that, like, realism to the character is what makes it so funny. Because the lines are so funny that you can't play that. You know what I mean? I'm not making sense. Forget
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
Trust the text.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense for me.
Do you have a favorite Dahlia line?
Oh my God, there are so many. I get these scripts and I like look at Emily and I'm like, really?
Tyler Perry is one of my favorites. That's one of my favorite lines. What is it?
I think you're like, Tyler, you're joking, but you're not funny. Yeah. I think my favorite is this speech that I give to Tessa at the school dance. I think that was so hard to get through. So especially when I took the sip in the middle, like half the time my straw was on the other side, so I was like trying to grab it.
Just a long laundry list of all the different ways that she was going to undo Tessa.
That was really
And
no breath.
those moments are, when we have our table reads, it's like our jokes live and die by the table. So we have this table read, and we're in the writer's room, and we're writing a speech like that for Dahlia, where she just goes on and on and on. And part of what's funny is the length of the joke, that she has to stop and take a drink, and then continue on and on. And is it too much? And we're like, well, should we lose 2 of these? Should we lose 3 of them? Should we just shrink it down? No, let's do the whole half page. And we'll see if we can sell it at the table. And then that's another great gift, is that our actors come to the table reads, and some of them have had the opportunity to read the script ahead of time, and some of them are seeing it for the first time. And no matter what, it's like they just sell the jokes. The tables are hilarious. They always go over huge. And we wind up, getting to do all of our crazy half-page monologues because these actors know how to do it. And you don't get to do that if they can't.
We have another good Dahlia monologue. There's actually like a sneak peek online, but in the upcoming episode with her to Cheryl about this one. about all the things he's not. It's literally it's like
handsome.
this long in the script with no commas or periods. And before I did it at the table read, I was like,
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to talk about the Shay family here too, and the Shay children. We have. I think Allie. I think Lisa is such an interesting character because Lisa and Tessa really bond over their hate for Chatswin. But I think Lisa might be one of the weirdest characters on TV.
I think
She's
you're
the
probably
best.
right. I think you're probably right. One of my favorite authors, Amy Hempel, has this saying that if it's not true, it's just a made-up thing. And that's really sort of those are sort of the walls in which I think of Lisa, is that she means and believes everything she does, no matter how obscure or outlandish, weird, no matter how ridiculous it is, she has such a firm belief in it. There's such a conviction in everything that she does, which is quite funny because there's also quite a lot of conviction in Sheila Shay. And that's really what I love playing so much, are these very like subtle tones of Sheila Shay that I think inform a lot of the things that Lisa believes in. So I think it's her hatred of Sheila that also informs why she loves the things that she does and is attracted to the things that she is, which I think is really fascinating. And just, I mean, I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to do it. Just
Do you hate me?
No, just to be able to have a scene with Anna and Chris and Parker, I
know, we have good Shay days.
it's the best. My favorite thing in the world
We
is
always get
sitting
there.
at a dining room table
We have
with
good dining room days.
Anna and Chris and Parker, and there's just such an enormous amount of safety that I feel, and it's so comforting, and it's just fun. It's just so much fun, and because I think because Anna and Chris have played these same people for a long time.
64 years.
64 years.
That's a long time.
There's such a depth and knowledge to this world. You know, they know this world and these people so well that it actually becomes flesh. And
the family dynamic is so well set up where improvisationally it was recent. The Shays are going to have some hard times this fall with this adoption secret and stuff. I won't spill any beans, but some tough times ahead for the Shays. And there's so many times improvisationally where, like, you know, we're doing the last fun run take or whatever,
Yeah.
and I will bark at Chris, and it's like a German Shepherd, like literally like a German Shepherd protecting her pups, because like I'll start attack him and he'll be like, Lisa, we don't need to hear it. Yeah, it's like lying down the way, just like everybody's turning, and poor Lisa just takes like the last hit, you know.
which I don't mind. I really
she's
don't.
always- you
I
always
really
take
don't.
it.
And I think that's also one of the truly, like, one of the tremendous joys of being on this show is that it's like doing a play every week, and suddenly it's like you're walking down the street and you turn the corner and suddenly, you thought you were in Los Angeles and now you're in Hong Kong. It's like suddenly you're in a very different place, and it's like I didn't know that was there, and yet I've been playing it all this time because it's there in the writing but hasn't revealed itself, if that makes any sense. But you actually get the opportunity to play it and to give it, a breath, because as someone who loves television and who watches television, there's nothing I find more upsetting than, following a show and investing in it and then just having them just drop storylines and just cut them in half and not see them through and develop them. I mean, personally, I find it very irritating as a viewer. So to be on a show that allows us to find things and express them and play them is extremely satisfying and rewarding as an actor and just someone who cares about this world a lot.
Yeah.
And on a really light note, I know I'm taking more than my time of the Shay
Take
time.
it. Take
but
the
I just
mic.
have to
Take the
say
mic.
that
Take the mic.
Parker Young, you guys do not realize, I know there's a lot of actors in this room, how much food he has to eat at those dining room scenes.
Wait
And he
a
has
minute.
gone, so many days he'll come in and be like, I barfed up all that bacon.
You've barfed a lot.
He's had to barf.
You've thrown up a lot.
I've learned my lesson. I keep a bunch of spit cups around now. Yeah, because
Every week it's like he's inhaling more spaghetti or
yeah,
pudding.
eggs and
or-
bacon.
It's
yeah.
but it's never
Pudding.
just like spaghetti or chicken. Like it's veal and
Bones and-
bones. Yeah, it's never just anything.
Or the bottle
remotely
of
pleasant.
vitamin water you have to chug 85 times.
Yeah. You did puke that time. That was the time you puked. Right. Okay.
How many times have you puked on set?
He goes home and pukes.
Once.
All right.
Just be real. Just be real.
Talk a little bit about Ryan, too. Do you think he's actually smarter than he comes off, or is he just really an idiot?
Yeah, it's been an interesting evolution, this character for me, and I think there's a lot of Ryan that viewers haven't seen yet, just because we're so new into this season. But it was scary for me at first. When I auditioned for the character, I didn't think he was dumb. I didn't know he was going to be dumb. I auditioned.
He wasn't dumb initially. He was.
I was kind of an asshole. I was a little
more
bit of a
mean, yeah.
douchebaggy, jockey kind of guy. And those scenes got cut from the pilot. I just had to hump the air, and and then I got the script for episode 2, and I was just a total idiot, and it freaked me out.
Being an idiot?
I just didn't know if I would be able to do the role
To
justice.
be an idiot?
Yeah, I could do it fine and as myself. I didn't know if I could translate it into the character, and I think that because of that, I was kind of freaked out, and I was trying to do the role justice, and I wanted to make sure that Emily was getting this dumb character she wanted, and I don't think we really knew what we wanted, and finally I just I think I found a sense of ownership of the role, and I said, this is what I want to do, and I was really thankful for the transition, because I can get away with so much. I can hump a locker without being creepy, or I can say things. It's such a liberating character to play, because if I have an impulse, I can just act on it. And lastly, I think that my goal with Ryan throughout the course of the first season was to try to humanize him, and it just worked out so wonderfully that he finds out he's adopted, because it was kind of the final ingredient that really sort of helped bring the character to where I wanted him to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Emily, why did you make that change between the pilot and the second episode?
Well, you have to look at the whole picture, and it felt like we were lapsing in the pilot into a very kind of familiar, cliche sort of role for the brother to be this punishing, disparaging kind of presence in Lisa's life. And the more we thought about it, the more it seemed to make sense that, first of all, I don't see Ryan as stupid. I think he's incredibly sincere. Totally. And childlike, and that you have so much empathy for Ryan, and it's really no small feat what Parker has pulled off, because the idea that you could take a character like Tessa, who is just the antithesis of what Ryan Shay seems to be, and root for them to be together, and you do. It is impossible not to. Whenever they have scenes together, which is why we wound up growing that storyline, you root for them to be together. Ryan is probably just one of the most sincere people in Chatswin. He doesn't have ulterior motives. It's all on the surface. And the idea that we could put him in a household, and we didn't know from the beginning that he would be adopted. We kind of arrived at that, and it made sense, and it was a great little secret to keep and have everyone stumble on. But the idea that Lisa, who's obviously so intelligent and has so much going for her, that her parents would just continue to celebrate her brother, who doesn't seem to have any of the great qualities that she has. It was just like, yeah, no, that's good. That's a good dynamic. Because our camera loves to find Lisa listening as, Ryan is saying his dumb shit and the Shays are like, unbelievable son, unbelievable body on you. And Lisa, you just find Lisa.
Chris Cornell saying tremendous body. You have a tremendous body.
Have a great day at school, son. You have an amazing body. That Lisa's like, yeah, of course, this is my family. I'm definitely where I'm supposed to be. And then, how wonderful it is. One of my favorite scenes in the finale is the discovery for Lisa when she sees the blood and realizes it's not me. It's him. And I'm actually one of them, and just seeing all that on her face and the pain and that the idea that she held on to the hope that I'm not of them. They don't get me because I belong to something else, something greater, something more important. Nope, I'm one of them. He gets that too. He gets everything. I think it's all, as Anna was saying earlier, it's like, it's a big puzzle, and you can't just look at one piece. You have to look at the whole family dynamic and how everyone's going to play together, and it just made sense to have him, be ultra celebrated and having him feel, sort of mean and callous, and it just felt too familiar, and it was too easy. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Tessa when talking about Ryan, and unfortunately Jane couldn't be here tonight. But I wanted to ask Jeremy about the relationship between George and Tessa and how it's evolved. And going into season 2, we've seen 2 episodes now. We see that that's changing a little bit, that George might be loosening his grip on his daughter. Can you talk a little about exploring that relationship with Jane and these characters and how where it's kind of going this season, what we can expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think when the show started, it was she's in a stage of her life where she's changing a lot, So, and he knows that that's a part of this stage of, a young girl's growth process, and so I think it's just a continued struggle to try to embrace these her spreading her wings and finding the things that she's going to need to be interested in, such as her mother, which is a big thing that comes up this season, and so it's been pretty great watching those storylines unfold in the scripts and to see Jane do them, and sort of for my part, I think I have a couple of kids and they're very young, so. But I can imagine, it makes it very easy for me to sort of imagine what it would be like to allow my kids to go out in the world and make mistakes. And we were just at Disneyland today, and my daughter made a lot of mistakes. She's 3, so that's okay. But you can relate to that from the moment you become a parent, and it becomes. I imagine more complicated as they go out into the world as adults, and especially when they're as precocious as I think the Tessa character is. So it's been a lot of I think it's a hard season for George in a lot of ways, just because he has to accept a woman who kind of ruined his life. This woman who he had a kid with, and then flaked out on all of that responsibility and kind of hurt the one person that he loves more than anything in the world, and he has to accept her back because his daughter is interested in, rightfully so, and he knows that, but it's a pretty easy thing to imagine as a very difficult circumstance to have to be in the same room, let alone embrace her. Has been a pretty fun thing. We have a great actress, Malin Ackerman, who plays her mother. I think that was public knowledge. Yeah. And so for me it really is a joy to be a part of it. To see how the writers are able to tell these stories that are kind of personal and poignant, and yet never being as boring as I am right now talking about them.
Please
making
stop,
them
please.
entertaining and fun. So.
Well, another great relationship we're seeing this season is the George and Dallas romance starting to blossom. Can both of you talk about? Well, Cheryl, can you talk a little about that relationship? It seems like it's the odd couple getting together, but
It is definitely the odd couple getting together. I don't know. Where do you begin? Well, it's interesting because Dallas and George are polar opposites. So it's really speaks volumes about the writing of the show and about Emily's vision of these characters. And I think, sometimes you forget that the show is a satire and you're just being entertained. But what Emily does so well, and all the writers, they write complicated situations, and the characters, some of the characters are pretty out there, but they're invested in these relationships and situations where, like Emily was saying, you end up rooting for people, even like Tessa and Ryan getting together. You want them to get together, and for some reason people want Dallas and George to get together. Maybe because you want to see what's going to happen. You can't even imagine it.
well,
Yeah, I know in the beginning I couldn't foresee it at all. And people would ask me like, is this the thing where you're gonna get together with Cheryl's character? And I'd say, no, that's not at all what this is. Because I really had not at all thought. But by the time it came up, I was already wanting it,
Jeremy, wanting it, begging for it.
That might have come out wrong. I'm
No,
not
it
sure.
came out right.
Rewind a second, and so as the first season went along, as I got to know more about George, and we were trying to find what his eccentricities were, and sort of where, his what made him, what were his quirks that made him unique, and it turned out, and it felt very organic how it happened, that they're more similar than they expected, and I think that has to partially be with the way they love their kids, and I think I don't know, I guess it's something that I like about George is that he really does see past everything except.
You better watch it.
He's past everything except how she's able to what's at the core of her person and how she's able to treat people and how she sees.
What about the outer?
The outer, I think he likes too, actually, but that took some time to grow on him. But it was because of who she was, and
I think in one of the episode descriptions coming up, it says things do get intimate between the two of you. So how intimate does it get?
Oh, let's
It's not
say
good.
It's
not good.
It gets
You guys should
very,
be excited for that.
Listen,
She's always been a trophy wife.
Dallas.
She doesn't know how to have an intimate relationship.
How dare you, sir?
It's not easy.
Dallas wants to make sure George will never forget the moment he got
She ruins
this.
everything. She ruins it all.
It gets real intimate, y'all. It gets real intimate.
It's real good. It moved to 9:30.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
Well, Emily, a lot of shows will tease this romantic tension out for a few seasons, but you guys, here you are at the beginning of season 2, and you're just going all in there. What was the decision making behind that?
Well, first of all, it's such an uncertain climate. That's not a good answer. The truth is that we explored both of them, sort of dipping their toe into the dating world. Dallas had a couple of stories with suitors, and George as well, and we knew that you would root for George and Dallas. We knew that people were and got that feedback. And ultimately, it just seemed so much more gratifying for viewers and for us as writers to just jump in and tell these stories. I mean, they're complete opposites. They're totally different. And there's just endless fodder. Even something as simple as, their first date going out to eat. You'll see that this week. It's just absurd, and it is just there's. Dallas brings her life coach, and she, spoiler. But we actually wound up. Our episodes are always long, and we always wind up shooting more than we can use, and until they make us stop doing that. I love it because it really gives us choices in the editing room. But of course, it's hard not to get attached to great scenes. So make sure you buy DVDs one day. But we had this great. Just litany of expectations, for Dallas. And that's what she's doing. She's really just, in her mind, she's trying to make sure that this relationship goes smoothly with great communication. But what she's actually doing is just choking the life out of George on their first date. And it takes a minute for them to get on the same page and for him to say to her, there's a lot of George kind of leading her down the path to say, you know what? I don't know if I require this. I want to be intimate with you, but I don't necessarily want smoke and lights and a harness. That's not normal. But meanwhile, you have this great heightened character like Dallas, and she does everything big, and she has all these great outfits and wardrobe. George Altman, the seduction of George Altman will be no different. So she approaches that like she approaches everything. It's just go big or go home. And, for George, I think it's really great to watch him sort of try and ground her, okay, and it's delightful. I'm so thrilled we took the leap and did it because I just think the stories have been so much fun to write, and then every time we get cuts in, we're like, aha, more good stuff.
A harness, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, there was a hard.
Yeah.
It was a tough week for Cheryl.
It was. Cheryl was an absolute trooper. I mean, the stuff that we made her do.
Here's the thing. They don't show me the scripts until, the train has left the station. So by the time I read it, the table read is the next day, and they're already in pre-production, and the harness has already been purchased, and it's like, and I get the script, and it's like, what are you doing to me? But then I keep pulling Emily aside, and I'll say, I don't know. It's crazy. And she's like, it is crazy, but you have to trust me. And I so I just thought, okay, I'll just do it. Balls to the wall. No
Yeah.
pun intended.
It's hard. It is hard.
And then hopefully in the editing room, they'll not make me look like an asshole.
Emily makes us do the craziest things. And Dahlia gets so, literally, it's very demeaning.
So what's the craziest thing you've had to do?
Well, it's more, oh my God, this season, you guys, is beyond amazing. But it's more so this, she had to be naked. We always talk about,
There's a lot of nudity.
Dahlia.
There's a lot of nudity.
Yeah, Cheryl's talking about, how I can't eat clam chowder, because the car's gonna stink. I have, a line where I'm like, I need to go drop some lo mein, and I'm like, Emily, this is embarrassing.
She just likes to torture her cast.
Yeah. But I make a music video this year.
Oh, very nice.
It's exciting.
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys.
So we
It's
see some
big.
dance moves.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of dancing.
A lot of dancing. We have a
Yeah,
whole
but
dance
you mentioned
episode
it.
where we have a dance off.
We have a choreographer this season.
Yeah. I was in dance
Been here
rehearsal.
for 4 episodes. We're like, what? It's a lot of dance.
I was in dance rehearsal for 6 hours one day. And I was like, am I on Glee or what is going on?
Yeah, this poor choreographer worked with Anna and Chris and Parker and I during the Shay Cat strut. And of course, I was like, I don't understand this. You're gonna have to slow down. And Anna was like, no, I'm sorry. Now, where do I put my feet? And my hips are gonna go where? And how is this gonna happen? And Chris Parnell was swaying those hips. He had the perfect pivot.
We're doing rehearsal in our cat unitards.
In our cat
We're doing the whole
unitard,
thing.
which
in
I
We had
should
to
just
rehearse
say,
in our full
Parker
outfits.
took his unitard off.
And
so
it was-
he's
it was
just
in the-
tights.
yeah.
He was shirtless.
Well, and I was stuck in the garbage can, so I didn't even get to do
Shirtless.
the choreography, but I chose to.
But you chose
I
to,
chose
but
to.
that didn't stop you.
But we're in the Warner Brothers gym in the spin room rehearsing.
Yes.
I just wanted, so people are popping in to work out, and we're all putting our pivot on with our cat ears and our tails.
And I'm going to tell you, Chris Parnell does not lie. on the dance floor.
No, he doesn't.
He
doesn't
is incredible. He's incredible.
Well, Jeremy has some good hip hop moves coming out. It's really. You have not lived until you see
doesn't
some
lie,
pop
you
and
guys.
rock by Jeremy Sisto.
Make little white lies.
It's an urban thing. It's like slang. Lies? It's all slang, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So I'm curious here because we have some great comedy veterans and we have a lot of newcomers in the cast too. There seems to be this really great split, and I'm curious for the younger cast members here, working with these veterans, like Anna and Cheryl. What have you guys learned working with them that you're taking to these roles and to your career further?
For me, the biggest thing that I've learned isn't even so much about the acting as it is about I always look at the way they behave on set, and that's the biggest thing. Poorly. That's the biggest thing I've really learned from being around these amazing actors who have been around for so long, and I've been able to because they're old. I didn't mean it that way. Who have been able to have really amazing careers, and I look at
The experience. It's not
Stop it.
Nursing home.
We
Oxygen tank.
are so lucky to have such, we don't have any divas. We don't, besides me. We don't. I'm not, yeah. But we, just the way that they carry themselves on set and, in the makeup trailer and, while we're waiting around and all of those kinds of things is something that I really admire and have really helped me with just their attitude, which is so impressive. And so for me, that's the biggest thing I've learned is, kind of how to carry myself around set and how to make it enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah. Parker, did you have something?
Yeah, I want to steal this from you, Allie.
Go ahead.
All right. I feel like the luckiest beginning actor. I don't know how you call this younger actors. To be able to go to work and even though I have to sit behind them because I didn't go to groundlings,
You know what it is? They're going to turn them into wheelchairs right after.
You guys have been around for a while.
but really, they're not that much old. You're like 6 years older than us. But it feels like such a blessing. It's such a blessing to be a part of the show, and I feel every time I get to work, I feel like, especially this one, the Jeremy. He leads our show for a reason, and it's not a fluke. It's not like. He's where he is for a reason, and all
That
of
just
them.
warmed my heart.
And I'll rap. I'll be there for a little bit, and I'll rap, and I'll just stick around all day. I'll just stay until for 6 more
does.
hours, and I'll just
He stays.
follow the director around and
Will not leave.
just piss people off. I'll hold the boom and stuff, just because I wanna just absorb it. Yeah, man. I'll be here to work till you're done, right? I'll be.
Well, on the flip side, then, I mean, what do the veteran actors think of working with these young? I mean, Rex, you work in the school environment here, so you're around the younger actors more so than I think a lot of the other actors. What do you think? What have you learned from these young kids coming up that you've kind of brought to this role?
What have I taught you?
I thought that if I was in the back row, I was one of the young ones. Fuck. Whatever. I haven't been a working actor that long, even though I am older than these kids. So, I guess the way I will answer that is, I think they have tremendous energy and curiosity, and it's an inspiration to me. I mean, if I'm not in a good mood, it's a struggle some days to say, you know what? You have an amazing job. Don't sweat the weird stuff that, I mean, I'm in therapy, so don't freak out about the stuff that you're going to freak out about anyway. So just, be happy you have this job and approach the day with energy and enthusiasm, and that's what I get from them. They're amazing.
Yeah. Well, before we
And
wrap
by the way, I should back up and say I watched them act, and I learned from them. I really do.
Yeah, I was gonna say these guys are pretty old souls. I always say that to people. I say like they're for even though they're new beginner, they're not. All of them have great credits actually, but they're incredibly disciplined. They're all really focused. They come to set ready and prepared. I mean, they're kind of an amazing example just to in the way that all sets are hard. You're getting a lot done in a very short period of time, and you really can't have anyone. You know, if you're going to have a productive, especially with an ensemble as large as ours, like there are a lot of moving pieces at all times, and I find that they're very. I mean, you know, Jane calls me and says, like, recommends an online vendor of insoles. I mean, she's sort of an 80-year-old woman in a lot of ways. So.
I would like to say too, because when I worked on other shows, well, I'll say it. When I worked on Curb, you know, I was working with I was the youngest one on the set, which is funny to think about. But you know, those guys were a lot of fun and really smart and brilliant. You know, and we'd sit around and tell jokes and. But there was a little bit of cynicism with that group that's sort of like, yeah, we've seen it. And even, you know, somebody says something funny, they'd be like, yeah, that's funny. You know, that's what comedians do. They don't laugh, they tell you, yeah, okay, that's funny. But, so it's nice to be with a group where everybody's laughing and there's, I think everyone when I come to the set, everyone feels grateful. It seems like they're happy to be there and they're happy to be shooting a show and you know, it's exciting if you get invited somewhere or if someone's on a talk show. It's like, oh, Jane's doing Letterman and it's exciting. It's not like, ugh, brother, you think I'm going to tune in to watch that? You know, so there's like this excitement that I missed on Curb because, you know, on Curb I was like, hey, this is great, you guys. You know, we're going to go to the Emmys. I'm not going to the Emmys. You know, and then I would have to talk. But so it's nice that everybody's in the same boat, you know, and we're all happy to be there. And
If we get invited to the Emmys, we're going.
yeah, with enthusiasm.
And I just,
So I want to make sure I get a few of these audience questions in here too. Cheryl wants to know, and I think Anna, you talked about this a little before too, but how much room, and Emily, you can talk about this as well. How much room in the script is there for improv? What's scripted? What's improv? You said you had a final take that. Oh
no, I mean I have to say this that is not. People ask us all the time. They assume because a lot of us are from an improv comedy, you know, not background, but that we have experience. It's impeccably written. I mean, it's one of the rarely does even a joke change. I mean, all my friends of ours who are on other shows are always talking about getting pages. We rarely even get pages like on the set because it's so well written at the table by that level. There are changes, but minimal. I'm just saying sometimes you'll do like a funny run, or Emily will think of bits on the set.
Usually we'll say like, let's get what's scripted, and then we'll do one for fun at the end where people can, if they have ideas, throw them out. And then whenever I'm on set also, I always try and tweak, go in and say, how can we make this funnier? Can we beat this joke? So we always try and get a version of what we wrote, and then we always have room to play with it too. But yeah, the scripts are under a lot of scrutiny. You have 2 tiers of notes that come. One comes from the studio and one comes from the network. Ultimately, you have to get a version of what you wrote that everyone signed off on. We always do. And, but we have a lot of people that like to play and say super funny stuff, and a lot of the time that gets in there too.
It's the best when Emily's on set. It's my favorite. Because she is such a genius. You guys don't even understand. And I'm not even just saying this because she's, our boss. But, and in front of us, yeah. But she really is.
She's gorgeous, too. She's really pretty.
Beautiful.
Thanks, guys.
She gives really good presents.
I always tell people that the stuff that comes out of her mouth, I was like, how did you think of that? Like when we were doing the first episode and I was doing the whole thing with Tessa when she's playing the guitar, Emily runs out and is whispers in my ear and is like, I want you to just go up and be like, here you go, sir. And I was just like, what, like, how do you think of these things?
Yeah, it's, I was nervous about comedy because sometimes you're in a funny mood, sometimes you're not, or I am. And when I'm not in a funny mood, sometimes things that I thought were funny yesterday aren't funny anymore. So it was really important that, I guess a little moody.
I like about it.
And so it was really important that, or it's been a really something that's been nice to have somebody like Emily who always has a perspective, point of view, always knows what she thinks is funny, what she thinks works for the character, and she has a really good eye. And there's nothing like that, to be on a show where you feel like somebody's behind you watching and making sure that what's being let through is something that is cohesive and makes sense. And she does have a real gift for that. So it makes our job, I think, a lot easier. It makes you able to get in cables or harnesses and just sort of say, Emily she's never let me down in that sense. Where there's been things where very often, at least every day, at least one of us has to do something that we're pretty embarrassed about, and it humbles us because we come to set and you do these things that you never thought you'd have to do, and the only way we're able to get through it is because we all trust her.
My true goal as an actor is to not feel self-conscious, is to not have like a self-awareness that ends up negating my decisions or choices that I make or don't make or whatever, and being on this show and having Emily and Anna and Chris and Parker and just having the presence of Cheryl and Jeremy, who I don't get to work with that often, and Alan too, for that matter, who's not here because he's in Wreck-It Ralph and it's premiering. Is that it's such a nurturing environment, and you don't feel there's no shame in saying I don't feel comfortable with this, and there's no judgment and there's no scorn from Emily if you say I don't feel comfortable with this, because even if you end up doing it, which most of the time you don't feel comfortable, and you still do it, you know that someone is there who cares, and not only cares about the show, but also cares about you, and you feel that. You feel that, and that means a lot to me.
Yeah, great. Well, Tony would like to know, Cheryl, are there any plans for you to direct an episode this season?
Woo! That is a very nice question. Thank you for asking. Is that you? Oh, thank you.
Hi, Tony.
Anna, he's talking to me.
I'm not trying to steal focus. I just was
totally
there was a connection.
I
just felt a connection. I'm so sorry.
Tony, thank you for coming tonight and asking me that.
Cheryl, did you pay him to do that?
Yes. As of now, there's not a plan to do that.
After tonight, there will be.
After tonight, I'm talking to Emily immediately.
There should
I know. I mean, no, not yet. Not yet.
but there should be.
Okay. And this question is for Emily. Emily, can you please discuss how important diversity casting is for you as you write?
As I write? We have obviously very controlled diversity on our show. And part of that is just keeping up the nature of Chatswin and the joke of, this community. It's funny, when I moved from Manhattan, I went to public school in Manhattan, and the white people were the minorities. I moved to Larchmont, where there were two African-American girls in my school, both of whom were named Tanika. There wasn't a lot of diversity, and for me, I was like, what is going on? We're like 13 miles outside of the city. Where is everyone? And I'm like, it's just crazy. So we kind of sold that to them in that, this was a town, and we knew we wanted to have diversity play a part in the show, but we wanted to use it as a story point, and the lack of diversity for that matter. So this season, we had our sort of fun with it in season 1, but in season 2, we get to meet all of Malik's family.
Incredible.
Tim Meadows plays Malik's dad.
Another SNL.
Another
guy.
He's remarkable. He's remarkable.
They are hilarious. We just cut the episode where the Shays go over, for dinner at Malik's family's house. Episode is entitled Black Tie. Thai, Thai. They serve Thai food.
They have Thai food.
Very, very funny, and it's really nice. It is just a really nice change of palette, and we obviously, for us, it's never just diversity for the sake of diversity, throwing people in. No, it always has to be relevant to the story and make sense. And so we have another episode this season where Dahlia winds up getting relocated. It turns out that part of Dallas's house actually borders East Chatsworth. And Dahlia is removed from the school and sent to East Chatsworth High. And she meets the African American version of herself. And there's a lot of diversity over there in East Chatsworth, and it's really fun and funny. So
We're actually shooting that tomorrow.
Yeah, so we always have to have our sort of spin on it. That was a big spoiler, so sorry. I'm good for this.
It's great. Well, I would love to thank, on that note, I'd like to thank the entire cast and Emily. Thank you for coming. Be sure to watch Wednesdays at 9:30 on ABC. Thank you again.
Thank you guys for coming
Thanks
out.
to all of you for coming and for your questions.